Hi everyone, I'm Teacher Cheryl and welcome to my channel. A couple of weeks ago, one of my students asked me a really good question in class, and so I decided to record a video so I can share with everyone because I realized that many students face this issue as well. So what was the question? The question was, what should you do when you don't understand a sentence? This definitely happens a lot even to teachers, because not all sentences are simple and there are definitely some long and complex sentences. So what can we do in order to understand these sentences? So my solution to this is just basically one step, and that is to break it down into smaller chunks. This is the easiest way to help you understand the sentence when you break down the sentence into different parts. Let's go through an example. So this is a pretty long paragraph. I'm going to read the whole paragraph for you just to give you a little bit of context to the situation. Soon, they were racing across a level plain at almost 100 miles an hour. The great balloon tires sending up little spurts of dust behind them. There was no sign of the colony. In a few minutes, while he had been gazing at the stars, its domes and radio towers had fallen below the horizon. In a few minutes, they had reached the edge of the plateau on which the colony had been built. The ground fell sharply away beneath them in a dizzying slope whose lower stretches were lost in shadow. Ahead, as far as the eye could reach, was a jumbled wasteland of craters, mountain ranges, and ravines. So obviously this is a very long paragraph. I'm not going to talk about the entire thing, but I have just picked out one sentence, which is, the ground fell sharply away beneath them in a dizzying slope whose lower stretches were lost in shadow. So let's just focus on this sentence, and you realize that this sentence is pretty long. There are different parts to it, and one of the problems that we would have with this sentence is most likely that we cannot imagine what it's actually like. We might have some difficulty picturing this scene in our heads. So like I said, what we're going to do is to break this down into different parts so that it's easier for us to understand it. So the first part would be, the ground fell sharply away beneath them. So in this sentence, obviously the ground cannot fall away, but can you just imagine it's probably like a very, very steep slope or kind of a cliff in that sense, like you can see in this picture here. And notice that the guy in the picture, if he were to take another step forward, he's probably going to fall and roll right off that cliff. Okay, so that's the first part. Let's look at the second part. In a dizzying slope. Now, a slope normally would not be dizzying. There has to be a reason for that, right? So combining with the information we know from the first part of the sentence, it is probably something very, very steep. And imagine if you are someone who has a fear of heights and you're standing on the edge of a very steep slope. That would actually be quite dizzying because you would have this fear of falling over. Like you see in this picture, can you imagine standing right at the edge of this very, very tall building? You would have that feeling of, oh no, I'm going to fall at any second. So that would make you feel a little bit dizzy in that sense. So therefore, this dizzying slope kind of makes sense now because it is probably something that's really high up. Alright, let's look at the third part of the sentence, which is, whose lower stretches were lost in shadow. Definitely our clue comes from the word lower, so this probably refers to the lower part of the slope. And so it tells us that the lower part of the slope is kind of lost in shadow, meaning that we cannot see. It's all full of shadows. It's probably really, really dark. Like you can see in this picture here, where you cannot see exactly what's below because it's too dark. And again, putting the information from what we gathered previously, it is somewhere that's really, really high up, very steep, and that's why the bottom parts are places that we can't actually see anything. It's too dark already because we are too high up. Let's consolidate everything. So the three parts of the sentence are, the ground fell sharply away beneath them. The second one is, in a dizzying slope. And the third one, whose lower stretches were lost in shadow. So remember, the first part of the sentence, the ground fell sharply away beneath them, tells us that they were at the edge of an extremely steep slope. The second part, in a dizzying slope, tells us that they are really, really high up. And the third part, whose lower stretches were lost in shadow, tells us that we cannot see what's at the bottom of the cliff or this very steep slope. So see, once we break the sentence up into different parts, it makes it easier for us to understand what the writer is trying to tell us, and also kind of helps us to picture the sentence a little bit more easily. What's next? So in whatever that you're reading now or in the future, what I'd like you to do is to look out for any long or confusing sentences that you don't understand, and then apply what we have just learned in today's video. which is to break up the sentence into easier to understand parts. Very simple, right? So that's it for today's video. As always, if you found it useful, please give this video a like and also subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. Also, feel free to share this video with any of your friends or family who might find it useful as well. So that's it for today. See you in the next one. Bye!